Hi there. Welcome back to the Lighthouse Sessions. I'm excited to have my new friend Ronnie with me. Ronnie, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and then we'll get into wherever the universe guides us.
Yeah, absolutely. First, I'm excited to be a new friend. It's reciprocal, so this is great. I guess first, I'm a husband and a father. I like to go there rather than work. And then I would say I'm a marketer, entrepreneur. But overall, just kind of a regular guy. Excited to chat with you. And then work-wise, I'm a managing director at NP Digital Canada. So I sort of started the Canadian division, and I'm responsible for everything we do in Canada. And in terms of what those responsibilities are, I mean, I always kind of go back to, like, I don't know if you guys know Trade Taylor. He has this sort of popular framework. He made a book called The CEO Only Does Three Things. So sometimes I ask myself, am I doing those three things? The first one being culture, right? Sort of shaping our core values and the environment and the shared beliefs and making sure everyone's working together. The second is the people talent, and I'm still very involved in that, and recruiting and developing and retaining the best team. And then, the last one is the numbers, making sure we have enough cash in the bank, which is, kind of important.
I love that. And I think it's fascinating that a lot of people want to be the CEO, but then they still want to be the doer of things. And
I like that.
We could talk about that.
We could. You know what? I think it's such a good subject. I think it took me a really long time to figure out what type of leader I was. And I kind of realized over time there's like sort of, they kind of fill in two buckets. You have that like visionary who feels like they're CEO, or maybe they're meant for it. They're just seeing everything 20 feet away. They don't want the details. They just want to set where things are going. And I think those are important. We've seen a lot of those at some of the great companies. And I always felt uncomfortable because I didn't feel like that was me. Not that I didn't have a vision, but I just feel like things can change in Q2. Like AI just came out and this can come on. You have to have a plan. And I also realized that, like, I like people, I like clients, I like doing things. And you're always told that it's kind of like micromanagement. So like if there's a war that started, I consider myself like on the front battleground. But that doesn't mean that you're not a leader. It does if you go too far. It does if you get in everybody's business. It does if you're pushing everybody around. But you can be that person that's still involved in the business. And as long as everybody knows that's the way you are, and you make sure to kind of catch yourself and still do those three things that I said that, I think you need to do, then yeah, I think you could be comfortable in that role.
I love that. And I'll just share a side note. A friend of mine works at a Fortune 500, and every year their Christmas bonuses across the organization, huge organization, are delayed because the second in command insists on going down with a spreadsheet and checking every single bonus. And it's like, dude, that is not your job. Just you've delegated, let it go.
Yeah, that's control. Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. I thought you were going to say like he hand delivers them. And he was
no.
Their houses, and that's why they were all delayed. I was like, that's so kind, but it's like, no, he's checking every dollar.
It literally, my wife's a big fan of the Griswold family Christmas, and it's like, doesn't he know what happens to bosses who delay bonuses?
True.
Anyway, so let's talk about you and how you got into this. So marketing is a big space, and you're specifically digital marketing. What called you into the work, and what are you learning now that's really exciting?
What called me into work? I mean, how I got into NP Digital Canada is really interesting. I started, just fast forwarding, I worked at like sort of the two largest agencies at WPP and Dentsu, so the big holdcos, and I know that's a big topic now. And I was working at iProspect, managing that team, which is a division of Dentsu, and I got an interesting call. I had an amazing colleague who sort of started Australia and gave my name through. And Neil Patel and the CEOs called me and said, hey, we're thinking about running this large account out of Canada. We want it. It's called FTX, right? And I don't know if you're aware of that now. At the time, that was the hot client. Tom Brady was there. And I said, at this point in my career, I'm not really interested in working on one client. But if you ever want to, open up division in Canada, I would love to. 2 weeks later, they called me and said, what does that look like? And so, being responsible in front of, I had a huge team. I left, I quit. I opened my laptop up the first day, and I was back to being the only employee 4 years ago. And yeah, now we're 55 people, and I'm really humbled by that. I think we have a long way to go as well. Yeah, what's interesting, I mean, it's what's not interesting in digital marketing with, I think marketing has always shifted and has always had, new technologies and new media. But I think we're at a point right now where it's almost outpacing our ability to adapt. And so that's for me is what's keeping me busy. And it's really interesting. There's no dull moments for sure.
I love that. And, it's funny because a lot of people I hear are worried AI is taking jobs, or, the complaint that there's garbage out there because of AI. And personally, I think AI takes what is already there. If we're smart, we're going to create smarter.
Yeah.
If we're not so good at what we do, we're going to create worse.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I mean, that's a definite topic of whether AI is going to take jobs. And I have my feelings on it, which I think is, everybody's got to lean in and adapt. But I also love that human creativity side, which is behind every campaign. So we can go down that path as well. But yeah, it's definitely fun to play around with it now.
I love it. And honestly, I see it as a creative partner rather than a replacement. So let's talk about NP Digital for a second. And how do you serve others? What does NP Digital actually do? And how is it different from other digital marketing? Because I think you are very different, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, brand and performance, I think a lot of people say that they offer creative marketing, and then also, what we call performance marketing, which I think is an outdated term. Everything should be performance driven, but media and creative is essentially the mecca. But I think the difference between us is that we really we sit together, right? So we build together and we do that together. I think that makes us a bit different. I think there's a lot of other angles. We talked a little bit about practicing what you preach, right? I think that differentiates us in the market. We have one of the top blogs in the world. If you look for on AI and you're looking for best digital marketing, so you're going to find us. If you are looking for a tool, we have software and we generate leads. So we're one of the only agencies that actually, are able to practice what we preach. We're doing CRO tests on our own website. We're driving leads. We have an e-commerce site where we're actually, driving people to what we have as a day. Well, actually, it's over a 3-day event where people can buy tickets. What other agency is kind of doing that? They're actually on the side consulting and telling you things they don't know. Now, when it comes to NP Digital Canada, I think what we did is, we built it really intentionally. I think we took the best parts, and if you want to know what really differs, we took the best parts of the big holdcos. So everybody working here that I've sort of attracted has somewhat come from different makeup. So there are amazing things about working at a big marketing agency: the resources, the tools, the rigor. And what we did here is we kind of combined them with the speed of that entrepreneurial energy, so that we loved from the smaller shops, right? So that blends let us move, I think a bit fast and also execute at scale. And I think at the end of the day, clients stay because we're obsessed with these outcomes, with these real business results, not the noise. So just that's the fabric of the company. And I think you would find this interesting. There's some uniqueness to our business, specifically in Canada. We have 2 unbelievable founders in the US, and I think they set the overall direction for each country to actually do its thing. So the ability for the US to allow Canada to run independently, but have these entrepreneurial founders and a strong global CEO, I think it trickles down to the rest of the market. So the rest of the other agencies, I think they make a lot of decisions for shareholders, short-term growth. When you're really free from private equity or capital markets, it allows you to sort of weather those storms that often happen in marketing, where you just let go everybody and they really are focusing on the long term. So I think that all those things would make us, a bit unique here.
I love that. And I can't remember who said it now, but it doesn't matter who it's that they said it.
I gotta use that.
The saying was something to the effect that most tactical marketers are chasing the trends, and they're testing the bleeding edge of things with your client money. Whereas good marketers or great marketers, they focus on what never changes.
Yeah.
And that's I'm getting a little annoyed with all of the there's a I don't know, somebody's teaching a formula, or maybe it's AI. On LinkedIn, at least once a day, I see a post that says, "This is dead. That's now the new thing." And I'm like, oh, just stop killing things. Let's just agree.
Yeah, SEO is dead or this and that. You know
Yeah.
what? Sometimes I don't mind those clickbait if when you click through, and Neil Patel, our founder, is actually big on that. He'll use really catchy like titles like that. But if you actually click through and read it, you need to make sure that you're actually giving a real answer and not just, baiting people into it. And I agree. Everybody thinks that the next thing is dead, and it's not. And his big belief is actually double down on the things that are working. And surprisingly, from a digital marketer, he'll talk about the importance of, being referable and having the voice of the customer being, the most important thing, and everything else following it. So I agree on that point. Yeah.
I love it. And by the way, I'm a big fan of Neil's. So we are going to be friends for a long time. Now, one of the things I like to do is get my guests to tell a story about success or what working with you feels like, because a lot of people are trying to be clever. And honestly, I just want to hear, what it's like to work with you from a actual client's perspective. What are the kind of things you guys do to start an engagement? What are you doing? Because as I researched you coming into today's interview, I really see you as a partner to your clients, not a vendor who's just happily getting paid whatever, for clicks and likes and all the vanity stuff.
Yeah, I think the first thing is we're pretty choosy with clients, and I think that's another differentiator. I think when a client says they want to grow, the first thing I assess is like their clarity. Like, do they actually know what kind of growth they want? Like revenue, margin? Are we talking market share, better retention, or did some account manager kind of put this brief together? Because I think growth is sort of like this vague ambition until you define the business problem behind it. So I also look at the service and product. So a good story is like, do you really believe in it? We just had 2 RFPs, so requests for proposals, and both were asking for 20% growth next year. One of them had a product with amazing reviews. We ordered the product, we loved it. We saw flaws in many areas that we could fix. We also saw growing category demand. The other, there was no logic behind the growth. It was like they were flat last year. They have rising prices, a flat category, commoditized product. We don't know if their budget's going to go. So it was, you're asking me about the client engagement. I think, marketing is great, but we have to understand what the product is. And then from there, I look at their ability to execute, right? Like, what data they have, the customer journey, the operational bottlenecks, all these things, and whether marketing is actually aligned with their commercial model. So to me, growth is math. If you don't understand where the leaks are, you really just can't fix them. And the first step that we always take in sort of diagnosing the numbers before recommending any playbooks or just, custom like packages for people. And then, what does the actual marketing mean once you start working with us? Well, I mean, obviously everything is custom. And I think it's simple. I think marketing should ultimately come down to driving measurable growth. If you can't tie it to leads, sales, retention, it's not marketing, it's noise. So
Hold on. That gets an amen and a testify.
No, for sure. I mean, any marketing that builds a business needs to focus on like data and testing and optimization. All those buzzwords is true, but hitting those tactics and channels and that move numbers and not egos is really, what we like to work with. I think when marketing is sort of aligned with the business model, the customer journey, it stops really being a cost center and becomes a growth engine, right? But then there's sort of a second layer that I look at. We try and understand like cultural shifts, like meaningful experiences, and using technology in a way that sort of amplifies human connection. And I think when you do that, you're not just chasing attention, you're creating this long-term equity. And that's what it's like to work with us. And also honesty. Like, we're marketing. If the product is not good, if shipping is not good, if the business is not aligned, if the CMO is not aligned with the brief, like all these things fall apart. And so those are big challenges that we have, I feel like we almost have two roles. We have like our job as marketers, and then our job to like make sure the business is aligned. And we kind of, build our teams up like that.
I love that mindset. And honestly, I think I take a lot of heat because I criticize marketers, but to be clear, I criticize the marketers who are all about the vanity metrics.
Yep.
And honestly, if you've got a bad product or terrible service, I'm sorry, but marketing is not where you spend your money.
Yes. It's well, we know that, right? We see that in sessions, like we see that all the time. Look, I think to your point, if you, and we say this all the time, we have large, auto OEMs, and we've done this. We said, like, if you stopped your marketing dollar tomorrow, like, your business will still continue. You will, a la Byron Sharp and others, you will see, the studies have shown, you will see that mental and physical availability dwindle down the road. But to your point, yeah, like, spending money on promoting a bad message or a bad product is not where it is. But over time you will feel it, right? And that's the thing, like, you don't turn it off and feel it tomorrow. And that's actually the interesting part, but also the scary part when people want to cut budgets. But yeah, I agree with you on the vanity metrics. If you want to get into that's a killer for me.
Well, let's get there. I want to share a story with you because I think you'll find it amusing. I met someone who was a marketer first, great disdain for accountants, and he said, I am going to crush them in their own game. And he had amazing marketing. The guy could get clients left, right, and center. He grew to a massive client base very quickly, but he had a 90% churn within months. And he's like, it doesn't matter, I'm a good marketer. And I said, you don't understand. Accountants are a community. If there's somebody who is caddyshagging the pool, they're going to come after you. And sure enough, after a while, the negative reviews, the complaints were so bad, the guy was shut down. And the irony is he was trying to sell a franchise where it was all about marketing, and the actual service was an afterthought. And he got a lesson in business. It was fun.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain markets where you can do that, but overall it's going to catch up to you, right? And I think at the end, like, your point of the story is the market is going to decide what cuts through, not you, right? So I agree. Yeah.
And that's, again, marketing without the business behind it is really pointless, in my opinion. I mean, it feels good for a while. So let's talk about the vanity metrics. Which one do you laugh the most at, and why?
Clicks, probably, or the most. Yeah, we got a lot of clicks. I mean, like, that one's for me. I think I have, like, a really, I don't know, I have an interesting perspective on vanity metrics. And I think the first part most people agree with. I think that everybody goes to vanity metrics because they're easy, right? They're fast, they look good on a slide, right? We're making those nice PowerPoint presentations. And then, like, they let people avoid the higher conversations about, like, things I was talking about earlier, like revenue or margin or actual business impact. So they give that sort of illusion of progress without the discomfort of the real change. But people want to keep their jobs. They're trying to market. They're trying to marketing to conversions and CAC and LTV and all these things. It takes real analysis. And some people think that teams are either just not set up or accountability. I don't think that people are lazy. I don't think people go to, like, click. Maybe some people are, for sure. They go to clicks because they're working on a slide 2-3 days before and they want to show all that. But I think if you look at the history of marketing, it's always really been shaped by complexity, right? You have, we were mentioning new media, new channels, new behaviors. And today, the volume of change is really, like I said, outpacing our ability. So we've gone from a few mass channels to these infinite micro moments. And marketing has actually never been harder. So we have automation, we have AI, we have endless tools, but this customer journey has, like, never been more fragmented. Marketing has always relied on mental and physical availability. And if you try to study this, it means a lot more. Like, you need to do custom studies. You need to go actually reach out and see what is our awareness, what is our unaided awareness, versus going into platform and looking at all these walled gardens and try to stitch up spend A equals revenue B. You can do that on certain platforms, lower funnel stuff. I can look at that on, we can look on that on AdWords. We can look at that on certain channels, but stitching it together, too complex. So people don't know how to do it. They don't have enough time to do it, and it's expensive. And I think that's less than the laziness than it is. It's really tough. Even if you have time, even if you have money, it becomes tough.
I love that. Now, I'll go a step further. I'm a big fan of studying human nature. when people are in that panic mode of, I got to get sales, I got to do this, I got 1,000 things to do, they don't stop and say, what don't I know that's going to bite me in the butt tomorrow?
Yeah,
They're,
that's
they're,
never anything that you're going to be doing, right? It's just all in the moment.
so I love my entrepreneurs, but some days they get hit by so many things they don't know which battle to be fighting. Now let's talk about people working with you. What's something you wish they knew before they'd even pick up the phone or come to your website or connect with you? What do you wish people knew about marketing, digital marketing, that seems to not have been taught today in school?
I think for me, it's long-term, what their long-term plan is. It's all that short-term, long-term. Like, I think it's a need. It's a good segue. You were saying before, like, people are just kind of like, what's the problem today and how do I solve it? It's like that recency effect. So they're like, they'll pick up the phone and they're like, AI search, we're stuck. I just came out of a meeting and I need to fix this problem. So sometimes I just wish people don't try and just solve problems that are just so narrow-minded, and they think about things a little bit more like spatial problem solving. There's that. And then also being prepared. Like, what happened to being prepared? What happened to like writing your thoughts down before you call someone and say, like, these are the 3 things that I was thinking about coming to, like, or all the people like complain about all these meetings that everybody's having all the time. And I just think, like, how often do you get a meeting invite that was like, here is what I need from you. Here's the reading material. Here's what I don't need from you. Here's what I'm looking to do from this meeting. So yeah, I think preparedness and like not so narrow-minded thinking of trying to solve something that's so recent would probably be my answer. What I think people would come to us for. They come to just solve a quick problem, and they don't like when we unravel the whole thing by asking a simple question back to them. They just want a quick fix. That's
Well,
probably
it's funny
because they'll take the money and just fix that problem, but it doesn't really work.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, how do you know what you're solving? If somebody comes to me and says, I got a boo-boo on my elbow, fix it. If I don't ask a couple of questions, I don't know what I'm fixing. And it astounds me. I run a networking group, and the last group, I was just surprised how many people were there because somebody told them they needed to network. And when I asked them what they do, why they do it, and who they do it for, you'd think I just asked them to solve complex math. Like, it was just, I'm like, you're entrepreneurs.
Yeah, a lot of people have bad intentions with those things. They're just going into like, if you're ever networking just for you, and then you think that that's what can I bring in? And that actually goes back to the marketing equation, which is like, what can people expect working with us is the value prop, right? And so if you're not willing to give, then you're not going to get back. I believe that. I don't know. Whatever energy I put out into the galaxy, I think will come back to me. So I think people need to come in with more intention in things that they do. I find people just show up.
Yeah, literally they show up. Oh, it was in my calendar, so here I am.
And we're all guilty I'm not, of it, but we got to step. We're all busy, but you got to step back and kind of think about this.
I'm not kidding. One person showed up and said, I don't know, I'm just here to make friends. And I'm like, oh, bye. Again, if you're willing to waste your time, great, but please don't waste the group's
time. It's better than saying, I just want new business.
That too. I love it. Now, I'm going to ask you the ultimate hard question, and you'll either love me or hate me for this. What advice do you wish somebody had given you when you were just a young guy starting out?
I would say that's a great one, and I'm going to give it some thought. I think nobody controls your career but you. And I think when you're young, you do a lot of things for the paycheck, or you do it because you need it. And you get wherever you are, it could be a manager, it could be a boss, it could be anything. It could be that paycheck. You feel very tied to it and very stuck. And it's so easy for you to go on social media and listen to all these podcasters and influencers and talking about all that have money and saying, be free. And it's really actually really tough to understand that, like, there is something behind this where you manage your career. If you are not happy about something, you can change. You can make that bold move. You can decide to go learn something that you don't know well. You control it, where sometimes you feel like you don't. And I think that that's, something that I would take to heart early on in my career. I think it's easier to get that later when you have that freedom and you've been successful, relatively successful. Then it's easier to say that, but I wish someone would double down on that to me a little bit earlier in my career, right? So it might make me
I
feel
love
better.
I love that. Well, I want to be mindful of your time. You have a very important obligation with your wife after this. So,
Yes,
um,
I told you before, my wife had a flat tire and he's making sure that I drop her off on time. So we were on tight timing, but I do have a few more minutes. Yeah.
I love it. And I just want to point out for most people, my people put family first. And I love your order, your husband and then father. I'm father, then husband. My wife hates that.
Yeah, that's right. I guess they're both equal depending on the day. But no, I do that with interviews. Like some people, like I love to see their face where you sort of ask them a question when you're there and you're like, the first question, what's the natural question about an interview? You're like, Jeff, you're like, tell me everything about you and your whole entire career, and they go on for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like, I just go on and say, make sure to equally tell me something of interest that you like, and you'd be amazed at the things that come up and how you can get a connection to someone from, oh, I play guitar, I like sports, I like this, and like that simple question of, being human first and still not missing a beat and still working. And yeah, so that's something I just try and bring into everything I do. Empathy, I guess.
I love it. I love it. And by the way, my people like their spouses and kids. I've met a few people who don't like their kids, and all I can say is somebody raised them.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good one.
No judgment. I'm just saying.
There's always I get a lot of, there's always that one kid that's the favorite over the other. I'm like, yeah, but you raised both. So yeah.
Yeah. Now I can ask two fun questions. So number one, somebody listens to this, wants to connect with you. What's the best place to find you? And then I'll ask a fun wrap up.
Well, I can give my address and they can come to my house. No, I think the best way for sure, is LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn. I go on periods where I'm like kind of active on it, and I go other periods where I'm not. And that's another conversation. I love LinkedIn and sort of the psychology behind the people behind that. So we can have maybe if you invite me back for another podcast, we can do a little special on that. But and we do a lot of marketing on it. But LinkedIn is the best place to find me.
Love it. You have a standing invitation, by the way. Now, this is my wish list. It's Christmas coming up. I'm Christian. I celebrate Christmas. If Santa was to come and drop somebody in your world, what does an ideal client gift wrapped in a bow look like for you that my audience can say, hey, Ronnie, you need to meet this person?
Ooh, I don't know if it would be a person. I can give you my ideal client. I'll actually give them their name. The company is Lee Valley, and they're an Ottawa-based
Love Lee Valley.
And I'll tell you why I love them. One, they're when we first started working with them, we actually saw how much their customers love them, and it was so rare when we do those analysis just to see the positive sentiment, and then we saw it why people love them. And I think the other reason is that they really value us as partners, and they're the agency that kind of, really sets us up for success, and they know the areas, and they allow us to really get into their business and make a change when we feel like we can make an impact and they have that dialogue. They're the best client. So for me, anything, like people ask me, who's your ICP, who's your number one client? I'm like, you know what, someone that really respects our team, that really understands and has like this knowledge of where their gaps are, where they need to go, and how do they use us to get there. And they don't just see us as a vendor. And I know it's cliched, but it's so true. You say that, but like it did come from somewhere, right? I think it gets overused. Yeah. We want to be a partner of yours, but they collaborate with us. They pick up the phone like, hey, what do you think about this? And no judgment, right? Like that's the type of client that we want. We don't always get that, but we're lucky to have a lot of those clients, and we've been able to weed in the good ones. And so yes, that would be anyone who can resemble those values, where their customers love them, they treat us fair. That's good for me.
That's a high bar. I love Lee Valley. Now, I'm going to point out, you said it's cliche. It's only cliche if it's a marketing line, not you. I literally, I can read your face. It is your belief system. So it's not cliche, for the record, but
appreciate it. Thank you.
I loved having you on. I will be tagging you when this goes live, but thank you so much for being a guest on the show, and good luck with your delivery today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm glad that I have a new friend now. So thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Ronnie.
Take care.